What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course the 2018 Mazda CX-5. Huge thanks to Mazda for providing me with this very nice CX-5 to review for you guys today. So about the CX-5, well, got a restyle last year and man, I think it's such a beautiful look to it. It's just really sleek and sharp, but just sophisticated and beautiful and simple. It just, I think it's probably the best looking crossover on the market right now. That's just my personal opinion, but I just love the front there, that huge grille you have. I love these headlamps that, especially the headlamps and tail lamps at night look really cool too. I love the LED accent lighting you get here on some of the higher trim levels, but that grille and just the whole way the hood comes down is very unique. It almost has a little bit of a beak that comes out almost, because you have this overhang over the actual front end of the car with that, which is just really unique, and you very rarely see stuff like that in styling on front ends of cars these days. But anyway, I just absolutely love the way that looks. I think it's just so, it just commands your attention. Anyway, coming down to the sides here, you know, you have these very nice 19-inch wheels here on the Grand Touring trim that this one is. Also, another thing is this soul red metallic paint really pops, especially here in the sunlight. Anyway, coming down to the sides here, you have this nice chrome trim line that goes down the windows there and just looks very good. And going out back there, you have some attractive taillights once again, and just, you know, pretty good shape there in the back. Again, familiar with the Mazda family here, and you know, looks very good overall. And yeah, I just think that front end is really the best part to me. It just looks so good, but overall, a very good looking SUV. Right, so the interior of the 2018 Mazda CX-5, well, it is really beautiful and shows just how Mazda is becoming more and more of a premium brand. It's just really stuff in here you would expect to see in Lexuses, you know, Acuras, you know, better than Buicks and some of the other premium brands out there. So, I mean, it's really impressive. Anyway, though, first things first, sitting down in these seats, very nice leather seats you have here in the Grand Touring trim. They just have really great support to them. I just love the way the leather feels. It's very smooth, and it feels really good. They're heated seats as well here, and the bolstering though is actually, you know, I think for the torso a little better than what you get in your average crossover. And you know, as far as the thigh bolstering, very nice and wide, you know, easy to get in and out of and stuff. And obviously still very accommodating seats for just about anybody, but you know, a little bit on the sporty side I think as well. And so overall they're just really great filling seats. Next to the steering wheel in the CX-5, which is very similar to what you get in all the other Mazdas, but that's a good thing because it's an excellent wheel. Nice, smooth leather wrapped, has a great 9-3 grip, just really comfortable for resting your thumbs there. Nice 10 and 2 notches. You have, you know, just a few buttons here on it on both the left and the right side. Very simple and straightforward. Next to the gauges in the CX-5, which are, again, very simple, but still packed full of a lot of really good information. So, you know, right in the middle there, you have a large speedometer, analog, which is kind of refreshing because most cars these days, you know, have a big middle portion that's digital and stuff, and you do have a digital portion on the right hand side here, which I'll get to in a second. But on the left hand side there, you have the tachometer. The only complaint I have about this gauge cluster though is in that tachometer there. Whenever you're turning off the lane keep assist, which I personally just like having off in case I want to, you know, cut a shoulder a little bit or something, it doesn't freak out. But anytime I have that turned off, there's a permanently orange illuminated little display message there, you know, telling me it's off, and it almost, you know, looks like it's a check engine light or something. Just having a glowing orange light there in your gauge cluster just isn't a great thing to see. But over on that digital portion there though, like I said, just really cool. I like how they're upgrading it, you know, making it a little more modern here. Some of the other lower Mazdas, you know, you just get a basic little mono color screen, whereas this has a full color high resolution display there for that whole little sphere there. And so it still does your basic stuff. It's not quite as advanced as what you see in some competing products these days. You know, it doesn't show audio information or navigation or anything like that, but does have all your basic trip info, a couple other little things in there, you know, MPG, all that type of stuff. And so just all the basics you need, and you know, nothing you don't. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, it's again just a wonderful exercise in simplicity. You know, it's just not a clutter sea of buttons. There's actually very few buttons in here, honestly. But right up top here, you have this little widescreen infotainment display that I believe is 7 inches, and it looks pretty good there. And so, you know, it's a combination. Whenever you're parked, you can use the touch screen here and control everything, you know, which makes it real easy to put in addresses and things like that if you do choose to use the navigation, which has, you know, pretty nice looking maps and stuff. But then you also do have this controller still down here, and that will cycle through everything, and that's what you use whenever you're driving. And now this is the third Mazda I've had for an entire week, and I've really started to get used to this controller. It still is, you know, not quite quite as easy as a touchscreen to me, in my opinion. I wish there was still a dedicated tune knob. You just have a volume knob. But aside from that, it's really easy to use, and I actually do kind of like this controller now the more that I use it. Unfortunately, though, there still is no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto here in any of the Mazdas, which is a sore exclusion because most of the competitors out there have it these days. It's a really nice thing to have. Coming down, you just have two nice large vents. You have your heated seat controls and also heated steering wheel control, which you get here on the Grand Touring with the premium package equipped here. And then you have the auto climate control here, which is dual zone, of course, and has these really nice kind of heavy duty feeling metal knobs. Just have a nice little metallic click to them. And anyway, you know, just a basic little readout there, nothing too advanced. And again, it's just very nice and simplified, and that's the only place where you have, you know, a few buttons. Otherwise, there is no buttons on this center area, which is really nice. And like I said, the only other buttons you see are the just a few buttons you have around the controller and volume knob area here. So overall, just so wonderfully simple, and it's really refreshing these days. Also, you have a heads-up display here as one of the options in the Grand Touring trim, which is really nice. It does recognize speed limit signs, and also it will recognize stop signs and things like that, which is pretty cool. And also, I like that it's an actual heads-up display that projects onto the windshield. You know, the Mazda 3, they have a little flip-up panel that feels like you're wearing bifocal glasses. This doesn't have that. It's just a normal projection onto the windshield and a very well-done heads-up display. As far as storage space in the CX-5, it's pretty good, but not best in its class, I don't think. Anyway, though, first off in the doors here, you have a large map pocket area with a bottle holder, which is always great to see. Coming over to the center here, you have a nice, large, deep cubby that does have a power outlet in there. And that is large enough to fit, you know, a large, full-size smartphone or something like that in there. So a good amount of space there. And then you have two cup holders. And then that's it for this center area. You know, a lot of other crossovers have maybe even a larger bin or, you know, an additional little area. But again, I think it's plenty of space, because you also do have, of course, this center armrest, which is nice and softly padded, and you open that up, and right up top here you have this little tray that you can slide forwards and backwards and remove if you like, and that, you know, could fit, you know, keys, things like that in there. And then you can see in the bottom portion there you have two USB jacks, an auxiliary jack, and a power outlet, as well as a slot for your SD card for the maps there. And it's a nice large cubby in there as well. So overall, I don't think you're going to be hurting for storage space here in the CX-5. It's still really good. Backseat space in the CX-5 is a really great place to be. It feels really roomy and spacious. Again, very comfortable leather seats back there as well. And I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I easily have 3 to 4 inches of legroom to spare there. And I have tons of headroom, of course, thanks to it being an SUV. And also, you know, it's just, you got a full down center armrest there, which actually also houses your buttons for the heated rear seats for the outboard 2 seats there, which is another nice thing about the Grand Touring with this options package. But in that center armrest, you'll also find 2 cup holders, and when you open it up, you'll find also 2 additional USB jacks that will charge whatever electronics you want. So really great to have all those hookups and stuff back there as well. You also have dedicated air vents here when you're looking forward, and there's also bottle holders in the doors. And so overall, really great back seat. Trunk space in the CX-5 is really great. Now, apparently it's slightly smaller as far as measurements go compared to some of the competition, but it still is plenty large in my opinion. I think it's really quite spacious. You can easily, you know, stack 4 suitcases back there. You know, they're full size, very, very easily, plenty of space. And I think, you know, some of the others might have some larger storage compartments under the floor. You do have little side pockets there you can open up on both the left and the right, but beneath the floor, all you have is a spare tire. Which is nice though, because a lot of these crossovers are getting rid of spare tires and opting to have, you know, a large storage space under there, which technically gives you more cubic feet of space. But honestly, I think I would prefer to have a spare tire, because you still have plenty of room, and this way you never get stranded and you don't have to wait for roadside assistance. You know, if you change a tire, you can just continue on your way. And so I think it's really nice to have the spare tire. And so overall, I think it's a really great storage space back there. And also, if you need more room, those rear seats do fold flat as well. All right, so start up and go for a drive. The Mazdas here have a very nice slender little key with some metal buttons on it. And of course, this keyless entry and push button starts. You just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off in the 2018 Mazda CX-5. So first things you notice here, well, you have a very nice high seating position, excellent visibility, of course, a large windshield. It's very easy to see out of. View out of the sides is great. You know, you have a pretty thin A pillar here. The B pillar is also pretty thin, so easy to see over your shoulder into the back window there. And then view out of the back rear view mirror is also really good as well. Even the headrests kind of don't get in the way too much, and so overall very easy to see out of. Another thing you notice right off the bat here is that first off, the brake pedal has a decent amount of travel to it. It doesn't have a ton of bite right at the top of the pedal like a lot of other vehicles these days. And also the steering is a little heavier, which kind of gets into you know, the enthusiast feeling of this vehicle that all Mazdas seem to have baked in these days, which I personally love, being an enthusiast. And so, I mean, it's not overly heavy, but you do notice that it's definitely heavier than I think most other crossovers in this segment that are non-sporty crossovers, you know, your average run-of-the-mill stuff that everyone goes and buys. And I personally like this though, because it gives me a little bit better feel. It doesn't feel rubbery like a lot of the others that are also super light, and almost just feels like you're using a video game controller. This actually feels like you're steering a real car, and I really like the way it feels. But we'll go ahead and put it into sport mode here, and let's see how it does. Here we go. Okay. It almost like launched itself. I love the sound of this engine. So it gets up and goes pretty good for a crossover. And actually it feels better than the numbers suggest, because, so this has the 2.5 liter Skyactiv 4-cylinder direct injected engine that does 187 horsepower and 185 pound-feet of torque, which isn't, you know, low for this segment, but with the all-wheel drive system here, it only does 0 to 60 in 8.1 seconds. So you look at that number and you say, oh, that's gonna feel slow, but it doesn't actually. It feels more like a 7-second. I mean, it doesn't feel fast really, but it's plenty of pep, and and uses a 6-speed automatic transmission that is not scared of high revs at all, and especially in sport mode here. I mean, it's just hanging out at 3,500 RPMs just because, and so that's nice that it's, you know, it's not, and even whenever, so we'll just take it out of sport mode here. And even still, you know, I mean, you have to tip into the throttle a decent amount before it will downshift, but it's much more eager to downshift than a lot of these other crossovers, again, from this segment, that are all geared towards, you know, the maximum fuel economy and leaving you in the highest gear possible for the longest amount of time possible. It's like, nope, we'll go ahead and give you the revs and help you get up and go faster, which again adds the sportier feeling you get in the CX-5 that I personally love. You know, it makes it feel eager and exciting, like it wants to go. Not that you have to sit there and poke it with a stick in order to get it to go. This thing, it just gladly just springs into action and you know, is happy to oblige. And so I really like that about it. Other things to note though, going back to the premium feel of this car, there's crossover. It is really quiet in here, and I think Car and Driver actually measured it, and it's 1 decibel quieter than a Mercedes GLC. So that is how quiet it is, just if you want to, you know, compare it to stuff. Taking their word for it at Car and Driver, but so that's what they said, and I totally believe it. I mean, I've driven a GLC. This is really, really nice and quiet. I mean, it's even a slightly windy day, and there's really hardly any wind noise, hardly any road noise, especially even with these 19-inch wheels and tires. You know, that could add some noise, but it doesn't. And so overall, it's incredibly refined feeling. The ride is very smooth as well so far. But I put it in a sport mode here as we're coming up to some corners. Let's see how the CX-5 handles here. So it's actually better than I was expecting, and I mean, there's been some SUVs that have really come a long way, but this really doesn't even feel like an SUV. I am impressed as my camera gear goes flying. This is really feeling good. And these roads are even covered in a little bit of salt, and it's still just really gripping well from these 19-inch, you know, wheels and tires. I think give it really nice flat handling. This thing's just taking itself to redline in sport mode, just for no apparent reason, but I love it. It's just, like I said, it's so willing and eager to just go bonkers. Yeah, it's just got a really good feeling to it. I mean, it's also got this, I think, G vectoring control is what Mazda calls their torque vectoring system with the all-wheel drive that actually limits engine in torque in order to kind of pull in the nose there and give you that you know, torque vectoring sensation. As we've caught up to traffic here, wow, I'm pleasantly surprised. This handles really, really well for a crossover. And again, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because it's a Mazda, and like I said, everything that they engineer with that fun to drive character. And I know that's like a PR line, but honestly, they all feel that way. They're being honest about it. That's the way it feels. It's just so sporty, and I love it. You might have heard that beeping there as a car was pulling off. These systems are still very easily deceived, and the Mazda system is like all the others out there, where it'll give you a false alert if it senses a car in front of you that is really going slow, and even though you're going to clear it, the car doesn't think you will. And I don't know why every single autonomous braking system that I use does that. It's really annoying. I'm not sure why. And that's something that thankfully with the CX-5, you can get as much of the tech or as little of the tech as you want. I think some of the stuff is standard equipment, but I think some of the more advanced stuff you don't have to get. And I'll talk more about the tech here in a little bit. Another acceleration. I felt a little torque steer from the front end here, which is kind of surprising. You'd think this all-wheel drive system, now it is a front-wheel drive biased all-wheel drive system, but it can send 50% of the torque to the rear wheels when needed, but it was sending most of it, it felt like, to the front still, because like I said, I felt the steering wheel tug at me a little bit there. But you know, honestly, so far the handling of this basically feels like just a slightly larger Mazda 3. I think it's based on the same platform, so I guess that's to be expected, but with the higher ride height and the higher weight of these two, these do weigh a decent amount heavier than, you know, your average little, you know, Mazda 3. These weigh around, I think the exact weight is 3,678 pounds here with the all-wheel drive version, which, you know, is right in line with most of the competition in the crossover segment that this is, you know, competing against. So it's not like it's heavy by any means, but it's still just, you know, you would think it wouldn't be quite as good as a Mazda 3, and maybe it isn't, but it feels like the suspension's nice and tight. There's very little roll. It just feels basically just as fun to drive around corners as the Mazda 3, in my opinion. I will say though, the engine, although it does feel torquey in the lower RPMs, it does feel like it runs out of a little bit of steam in the mid-range. You know, I'm hovering here at 4,000 to 5,000 RPMs. There isn't a ton of grunt, but it still is good, and I'm just glad that, you know, like I said, it's a nice, large, naturally aspirated motor. You know, you would have more punchy mid-range if you had a turbo or something like that, and it would be cool if Mazda was able to work in the motor, the 2.5 liter turbo motor from the CX-9, and put that into this. You know, that'd be a cool competitor to the Forester XT or something like that, and would really make this even more of an enthusiast vehicle. But I still love it just the way it is so far. But yeah, thanks to Mazda, I'm gonna have this vehicle for an entire week though, so I'm gonna drive around all week, and I'll come back and give you guys my final thoughts on the fuel economy, you know, in the real world here, as well as my thoughts on the price and any other observations I have during the week. But it should be pretty fun. Alright, so I've been driving the 2018 Mazda CX-5 for a week now, and I really love this thing. Compared to all the other more monotonous feeling crossovers in this segment, to me this one feels a lot more fun, and I actually enjoy taking it around corners. I actually enjoy driving it, which you know, can't be said for a lot of these other crossovers. It really is a fun vehicle to drive. Another observation I had here during my week is I left the lane keep assist system on, because like I mentioned earlier, I don't like the little orange light there, so I was like, well, we'll just see, you know, if the system is invasive or not. So I've been driving the past few days with it on, and I haven't even noticed it doing anything. I mean, obviously I'm not a bad driver, so it's not having to correct me really, but even whenever I do try and like cut the shoulder a little bit, it doesn't seem to be upset by that, which is really nice, because every other lane keep system I use, it's always either beeping or vibrating the steering wheel or doing something every time you're even close to the lines on the road, and this one doesn't do that. So I'm sure it's doing something, but I can't notice it, and that's the type of safety tech I like. I like the stuff that maybe is working in the background, keeping an eye out in case things really get crazy for some reason, but most of the time you never even notice it. That's the way safety equipment should be done, and I applaud Mazda for their great execution of that. Now, they still have the same issue as all the other autonomous braking systems, but other than that one instance on camera, I didn't have any other instances where that happens. So some of the other systems are really overactive. This one is a little more subdued, it seems, although like I said, still not without its fault. The last two things I want to mention are the fuel economy and the price on the CX-5. Now, the fuel economy in my real-world driving scenario here was just a little bit of highway. There was some, but not a lot. Mostly stop-and-go city-type stuff. And in my driving here, I got over about 117 miles. I got 21.9 miles per gallon, so basically 22 mpgs. Now, these are rated at 24 in the city, 30 on the highway for a combined average of 26. So as you can see, I was hoping for at least a city number, but it seems with a lot of cars here, at least during this winter, I've been consistently getting 2 mpg or so less than the city ratings on various different cars. So not unique to the Mazda here, so I'm not sure if it's just the conditions or what, but still for an SUV, 22 mpg isn't bad. And the last thing I want to mention is the price here on the CX-5. So these start, I think, mid 20,000s for the sport one, I think right around 24, 25. This one though, as tested, is $34,685. So it's the Grand Touring trim, which also has like a premium package added onto it. So basically this is a fully loaded example. But when you go in the configurator on Mazda's site, I think honestly you would get most of this goodness for even just the normal touring trim is really nice. You substitute the real leather seats, instead you get leatherette, but I think the leatherette should feel just fine as well. And those are just under $30,000. Still have heated seats, still have the LED elements for the headlights and all that type of stuff. Same great infotainment, all that type of stuff. And so I think that's probably the more reasonable one to pick as far as trim levels go. Although one nice thing with the Grand Touring trim, that's the only way I believe you can get the heated steering wheel, which is unfortunate that it's relegated to that top of the line model, because the heated steering wheel on some other models is just like a cheap standalone option. So for it to be kind of exclusive is a little bit unfortunate, because it really is a nice heated steering wheel. It gets nice and warm quickly at the 9 and 3 position here. But yeah, and I mentioned this infotainment system is standard in all the models. And again, the only thing it doesn't have is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Other than that, I have no complaints with it. And so if this had a CarPlay, I would basically say this is hands down my personal favorite pick out of this whole segment. I think even still that's something that I'd be willing to compromise on, because this drives so much better than a lot of the other vehicles out there in this segment. And so I often throw around this is the enthusiast choice, and I said that about the Mazda 3. It's the enthusiast compact, and I think this is the enthusiast SUV if you want something in this price range. I would argue maybe the Forester XT is a little sportier with its punchier engine. That's really the only, I think, more fun crossover in this segment that's also similarly priced, because otherwise you don't have a lot of fun choices unless you go up to the the $45,000 range. I love the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, or something higher than that, the actual performance SUVs. But otherwise, a lot of these other ones are just your normal commuter SUVs without very much sizzle, I guess. But this one has that. It's got style. I love these looks still on this. Even over the course of the week here, it's gotten just better and better. I love looking at this thing, which is crazy to say about a crossover, but it really is that good looking in my mind. And so overall, yeah, I'm really, really impressed with the CX-5. I like it a lot. So anyway, huge thanks once again to Mazda for providing me with the CX-5 here to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the CX-5 in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.